CEO sent a note to test the black girl. She answered in signs, and his plan collapsed. The boardroom sat high above the city like a glass ship. The table was long. The chairs were tall. Everyone spoke in soft voices as if loud words could crack the windows. A storm pressed against the skyline. Rain lines slid down the glass like clear threads. At the far end sat the CEO, Adrian Kincaid. His suit was sharp. His smile was thin. In front of him lay a small white card. He tapped it with a silver pen, then looked at the quiet intern at the side wall, Kaya Mitchell, a young black girl with her hair pulled back and a notepad on her lap. Behind her stood a potted ficus and a tray of water. Most people never noticed her. Adrian noticed everything. He slid the card across the table with 2 fingers. The card stopped near the edge next to the water. He nodded at Kaya like it was nothing, but his eyes said it was a test, a trap. A dare, Kaya reached for the card. Her hands were steady, but her heart thumped like a small drum. She had worked here 1 month. She came early. She stayed late. She listened. She learned. She did not speak much, not to these people in dark suits. She had a small scar under her chin and bright, patient eyes. She read the note. It said, "Do not pour water for the woman with the blue scarf. Wait exactly 12 seconds. Then pour for everyone else. Do not look at me. Do not hesitate." Kaya lifted her gaze. The woman with the blue scarf was Lucille Hart, head of people. Lucille smiled at Kaya and folded her hands. Kaya looked back at the card. It was a strange request. Childish. Mean. Why 12 seconds? Why single out Lucille? Why make her feel small in front of others? Kaya felt heat rise in her face. But she took a breath and remembered why she was here. She was not just an intern. She was watching and gathering proof. She was here for something larger than fear. Across the table, Ethan Rowe, the CFO, leaned forward. His jaw was tight. Devin Hale, head of product, tapped his foot. Rita Solis, security chief, kept her eyes on Adrian. The air hummed with wires of tension. Kaya placed the note back on the silver tray. Then she lifted her hands and signed toward Jordan Vega, the company interpreter who stood near the door. Jordan interpreted for a board member's visiting sister, Elena, who was deaf and had joined to observe the meeting and discuss an accessibility program. Jordan waited, ready to translate speech to signs and signs to speech. Kaya signed to Jordan in quiet, crisp shapes. "Please let her know there is a test. It's unkind. We do not have to play." Jordan blinked in surprise, then smiled a little, then let his hands move. The room slowed as Elena's eyes widened. People looked from Kaya to Jordan to Elena, trying to understand. The 12 seconds stretched and snapped. Instead of following the note, Kaya walked to Lucille first and poured her water with calm hands. She said, "Good morning," in a clear voice everyone could hear. Then she looked at Adrian, held his gaze for a heartbeat, and set the pitcher down. She lifted her hands again, signing directly to Elena now, the shapes sharp and graceful. "I see what he tried. I won't do it." The room fell still. The whisper of the rain grew louder. Adrian's smile froze. It was not the reaction he expected. He had wanted compliance or fear. He had not planned for answer in signs, not planned for someone to name the game. Ethan's eyes flicked to Adrian, then to Kaya, then back. Lucille lowered her scarf and stared at the pitcher, then at the note on the tray. Something in her face softened, then hardened. Adrian cleared his throat. "Let's begin," he said, voice smooth. "We're here to discuss Project Larkspur." That was the code name for a plan to optimize costs by staggering the accessibility rollout, words that hid a rough truth. The plan would cut captions, delay interpreters, and shrink assistive tools. It would save money fast and harm people quietly. Adrian believed most would not complain out loud. He also believed no one in that room would risk their career to fight him. He was wrong. Kaya took her place by the wall again. She lifted her notepad, but she did not write. She was listening for something else. The rhythm under the words, the hidden beat she had tracked for weeks. The first turning point hit like a soft bell. Ethan Rowe spoke. "Before we vote," he said, "let's review the internal report on user drop-off among deaf and hard-of-hearing customers." He looked at Kaya. "Miss Mitchell, do you have the deck?" Kaya nodded. She moved to the screen and plugged in a small drive. The slides were neat and plain. Numbers stood like fence posts. The story was simple. When captions were accurate and fast, people stayed. When captions lagged or broke, people left. There was a video clip of Elena using their app with accurate captions. Her smile was bright. There was another clip with broken captions. Her face fell. In the room, the storm seemed to settle into the carpet. A shameful quiet spread. Adrian kept his face calm, but his pen clicked in his fist. Slide by slide, Kaya spoke in simple words. She shared a line chart. She showed a quote from a teacher who used their software in class. She read the line softly. When the captions vanish for 12 seconds, a child loses the thread. 12 seconds is an ocean. Kaya did not look at Adrian when she said 12 seconds. She did not need to. Everyone felt it. Devin raised a hand. "This is clear," he said. "If we cut support, we cut people. We lose trust. We invite lawsuits." Rita added, "We also damage safety. Imagine live events. Imagine crisis calls." Lucille looked at Elena and then at Kaya. She breathed in like a new idea had entered the room. Adrian tried to steer the talk back to the old track, growth, margins, runway, but the track had shifted. The board members watched Kaya as if a lamp had been switched on. The second turning point arrived when Kaya spoke not as an intern, but as a witness. "There's something else," she said, and her voice trembled only once. "For weeks I have seen small tests, not just for me, for staff who are new, for staff who are women, for staff who are immigrants, for staff who are deaf. Delays, tricks, notes like the one today. It shakes people. It makes them doubt their place." She lifted her hands and signed the same words so Elena saw them at the same time. Jordan's jaw set. Lucille's hands curled on the table. Ethan looked sick. Kaya placed a small folder on the table. Inside were copies of notes she had found on trays, under coffee cups, slipped into folders. Little orders designed to stress or shame. Make him wait. Skip her. Deliver this last. Each note carried the same silver ink initials. A.K. Adrian laughed. Soft and practiced. "Office games," he said. "Tests of poise. No harm," he lifted his palms. "Leadership requires pressure." Kaya held his gaze. "Pressure makes diamonds," she said, "but it also cracks glass. We have more glass than diamonds here." She signed those words again. Elena's eyes grew bright. Jordan looked down for a moment. Then he looked up like someone who had decided something important. "She's telling the truth," he said. "I've seen it. I've seen how people shrink." Rita leaned in. "Mr. Kincaid," she said, "we have an ethics policy. Tests of this kind without consent, especially targeting protected groups, violate that policy." Her voice was steady as a locked door. Adrian's pen snapped in his hand. Ink hit his thumb like a dark tear. He wiped it on a tissue with slow care. "Let's vote," he said. "On Larkspur." He kept moving forward as if walking fast could erase the space behind him. But the room had changed shape. People glanced at Kaya, then at one another, then at the folder of notes. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, the light shifted to a softer gray. Lucille spoke. "Before any vote," she said, "I want to understand why an intern has to gather proof to be heard." She touched the blue scarf at her neck. "And I want to say this. I felt the note. I know what it was. Thank you, Miss Mitchell, for not playing along." Kaya nodded and signed, "You're welcome." Elena watched every move, every hand, every face. The third turning point cracked open when Kaya revealed why she knew signs. "My grandmother lost her hearing after an illness," she said. "I learned to sign so we could talk. She used to say, 'People will try to make you small. Answer with clarity, not anger.'" Kaya smiled a little. "I am trying." She signed the same story, a little slower, each sign like a picture. The room softened. People saw not an intern but a whole person with years and love and a steady center. Ethan cleared his throat. "We invited Elena to see our progress," he said, but she just watched us fail a basic test of respect. He looked at Adrian. This is not a game. This is our culture. Adrian stood. Enough, he said low. You're all sentimental. We have a burn rate. We have to cut. If we don't, we go under. And then what? No captions for anyone. He pointed at the screen. This is math. Kaya looked at the numbers and then at him. Math is real, she said. So is trust. So is the cost of harm. There are other ways to save. We can trim vanity projects. We can delay the rooftop lounge. We can cut my boss's coffee budget. The last line drew a small laugh from Devon. The mood cracked, just a little. Ethan clicked to a different slide. It was a list of proposed savings that did not touch accessibility. He had been building this alt plan quietly. Now he put it in the light. We can do this instead, he said. It keeps the captions. It keeps interpreters. It trims fluff. The argument rose and fell like a slow wave. Voices grew tight and then cooled. The storm outside passed to a light rain. The city brightened. In that clearer light, Rita Solis placed a small recorder on the table. There is one more thing, she said. Security flagged a pattern of anonymous emails pressuring mid-level managers to stress test junior staff with stalling tactics. The messages came from an account linked to Mr. Kincaid's home IP. We were still verifying. Today makes it plain. Adrian's mouth opened and closed. This is absurd, he said. Fabrications. Rita slid a paper across the table. It was a simple printout. Dates, times, headers, a map of harm. The room held the sound of a distant siren. Adrian looked around and saw no friendly eyes. The charm failed. The habit of control met a wall. He tried one last card. Do you all forget who built this? He said. Who raised the funds? Who took the risk? Kaya answered with a sentence that felt like a bridge. Builders do not get to break what they build. She signed it too. Elena nodded through tears. Lucille wiped at her eyes. Ethan lifted a hand. I move to suspend Mr. Kincaid pending a formal investigation, he said. Devon seconded. The vote moved from left to right like a slow, solemn drum. Hands rose. Hands stayed down, more rose. Adrian watched each hand like a door closing. The motion passed. The chair at the head of the table emptied in silence except for the soft click of a watch against wood as Adrian stood and left. The climax did not come with shouting. It came with steady steps. Rita escorted Adrian out. The elevator doors slid shut. In the shocked quiet, Lucille looked at Kaya. You changed the course of the meeting with 5 minutes of courage, she said. That is not small. Kaya shook her head. I only said what was already true, she said. Truth is heavy until more people pick it up. She signed that too, and even those who did not know the language felt the meaning. Ethan sat down and blew out a breath like he had been holding it for a month. Let's vote on the alt plan, he said. They did. It passed. Captions would be expanded, not cut. Interpreters would be funded. Training on inclusive leadership would be required. The rooftop lounge would wait. No one minded. When the meeting ended, the clouds pulled apart and a broad light fell across the city. People stood and stretched and spoke in softer voices. Elena walked to Kaya with Jordan at her side. Jordan signed for her. Thank you, Elena said, eyes bright. You spoke in a way words cannot always carry. You showed them. Kaya signed back. You showed me, too. You were brave to come. Lucille approached, holding the blue scarf in 2 hands like a letter. If you want it, Lucille said, we have a spot on the accessibility team. Not as an intern. As a coordinator. Help us build this right. Kaya's eyes widened. She had not expected this. She thought of her grandmother's hands, steady and wise. She thought of long nights reading policy and user stories. She thought of the small folder of notes and how heavy it had felt in her bag. Then she smiled. Yes, she said. I would like that. She signed yes, too, because it felt like blessing the word. Weeks passed. News spread that the company had changed direction. The story did not leak as gossip. It rolled out as a plan. Captions improved, interpreter partners hired, a few silly perks delayed. The city began to murmur a different sentence when it said the company's name. It sounded like care. Inside, the culture shifted in small, real ways. Meetings began with a clear agenda. People stopped playing tiny power games. If someone tried, others noticed and said no. Jordan led weekly sign classes at lunch. Ethan took a deep breath more often. Lucille mentored 3 new managers in how to give feedback that did not bruise. Rita rebuilt the ethics hotline and made sure calls went to real people who listened with open hands. Devin visited classrooms where the software made learning easier. He sat in the back and watched as a kid grinned when captions hit just right. That quick, bright moment when the world matches your needs instead of fighting them. One evening, as the sun mellowed to honey and the city turned quiet and generous, Kaya rode the elevator to the roof. The lounge was still a raw space with plywood floors and a few plants in plastic pots. It smelled of dust and promise. She stood by the edge and looked out. In the glass, she could see her own reflection layered over the city lights. She lifted her hands and signed to no one and to everyone. We did not win everything. We won enough to keep going. A door opened behind her. Jordan stepped out with 2 paper cups. "Tea," he said. "From the cheap machine, which now tastes heroic," they laughed. He handed her a cup. They sipped and watched a yoga class across the way bend in slow arcs like birds in a gentle wind. Down below, in a small apartment with a blue couch and a crooked bookshelf, Kaya's grandmother watched a video of Kaya speaking at an internal town hall. The captions were clean. The signing was clear. The old woman's hands moved along, proud and slow. She paused the video and looked at a framed photo on the shelf. 2 people at a kitchen table, a child and a woman, hands talking in the afternoon light. "You did well," she said into the quiet. "You answered with clarity, not anger." She pressed her palm to the glass and smiled. When the investigation concluded, the board released a careful statement. The company would not return to old leadership. It would move forward under an interim team while they searched for a new CEO who understood both numbers and people. Some were angry. Some were relieved. Most were simply ready to work. Adrian Kincaid took a long leave. The newspapers wrote their short, sharp stories and moved on to the next storm. Inside the company, change was slower and deeper than any headline could hold. There were still disagreements. There were still deadlines. There were still days when a caption lagged and someone sighed. But now people fixed problems with speed and respect. They did not test each other with secret notes. They asked for help out loud. On a bright morning a month later, Kaya stood at the front of a training room. She spoke to a new group of interns. Faces open, notebooks ready. She told them the story of a day in a high room of glass when a test slid across a table, and the right answer was not obedience, but kindness. She kept the words simple because simple words carry far. She said, "You belong here. If anyone tries to make you small, we will stand with you. If you are unsure how to stand, use your hands." She smiled and signed the same thing. The room warmed like bread. After, Elena visited again. She brought her niece and a tin of cookies. She signed with Kaya at the window while the city moved below them like a calm river. The niece learned the sign for friend and used it too many times, which is the perfect number of times to use that sign. Before the year closed, the board offered Kaya a new title, Director of Access and Belonging. It came with more work, more weight, and more chance to say yes to the right things. She accepted and then spent the next morning out in the field, meeting with a school where their software helped a kid follow a math lesson without fear. The kid wore a red jacket and grinned with all his teeth. "When the words show up fast," he said, "I don't feel behind." Kaya felt tears pinch her eyes. "You were never behind," she said. "We were." That night she returned to the roof with Jordan. They watched the city blink. She thought about all the people who would never know her name but would feel the results of her work. The mother who could follow a meeting without strain. The student who could catch the joke and laugh at the same time as everyone else. The worker who would not have to choose between a paycheck and dignity. She signed into the open air. "This is worth everything." Jordan nodded. "It is," he said and signed it back. Stories travel in odd ways. Some move like birds across a lake. Some move like roots under soil. This one moved both ways. People told it at lunch tables and in chat threads and in the quiet space between a question and an answer. The shape of it was simple. A person tried to make another person small. The other person refused. A room full of people watched and then chose who they wanted to be. In the retellings, details changed. The color of the scarf, the length of the storm, but the center stayed true. The center was a pair of hands speaking truth, and a room that finally learned how to listen. 1 year later, the company held a gathering for partners and users. The lights were soft. The screens were clear. Captions flowed like water. Interpreters stood on a small platform near the front. Kaya opened the event with a short welcome. She kept it plain. She said her name. She said she was happy they were here. She said they had work to show. She told a joke that only worked because the captions hit the punchline at the right beat. Laughter rose like birds lifting off a field. After the talk, as the crowd moved toward tea and conversation, a teenager came up to her and signed, "You don't know me, but last year I watched a clip of you. I decided to learn signs. I decided to try again in school. I'm doing better." Kaya smiled. "I don't know you yet," she signed back, "but I am very proud." As the evening ended, Kaya stood by the window and watched the city. The glass held her reflection again. She looked older, wiser, more herself. She placed her hand over her heart and then moved it outward in a sign that looked like giving. She knew there would be more tests in the world. She knew some would be hidden and some would be loud. She knew the answer would be the same every time. Clarity, not anger. Courage, not cruelty. Hands that speak and hearts that listen. And so the story returns to its first sentence and closes its circle. CEO sent a note to test the black girl. She answered in signs, and his plan collapsed. That day in the high glass room, a small card tried to make someone small. A pair of hands made the room big instead. The note reached for power. The hands reached for people. The note fell. The people rose.